What is the most memorable moment you shared with a stranger who you never saw again? I was about 10 years old and I had a pair of heelys and they were the coolest thing on the earth. I would roll all over on those things and thought I was hot. We were in China, spending a few weeks in Beijing. I was rolling around in Tiananmen Square, hit a crack, and lost one of the wheels. I looked around for about an hour, but to no avail. I was probably visibly bummed, as my heelys, the things that made me hot, were now ineffective and basically ruined. The next morning, I was walking through the square on the way to meet my friends, and an older gentleman ran up to me and stopped me. He had found my wheel. He said that he had seen me rolling around and saw me looking for the wheel after I fell. He saw that I gave up and stuck around for another hour to keep looking after I left. He came there the next morning with no expectation that I'd pass through, but wanted to be there just in case. I'm not sure who was happier, me that I got my wheel back or him, because he didn't think he'd see me in literally the world's busiest square. I said thank you, and that was about it. We both had places to be, and that was that. I found a rock formation that looked like in a cave in Vietnam. I laughed and pointed at it. Some Chinese tourists started doing the same thing, and then some Russian tourists followed suit. Great bonding because no matter what shaped objects are funny. I was walking somewhere on the West End in London on a weekend looking to buy a cap cause it was almost summer, and that day was really warm. A woman from behind called me and asked where Chinatown was. I know where it is, but where I was at that point I had no idea how to explain to her. She was with 2 children. So rather than tell her where to go, which would take me a while to explain, I asked them to follow me. They did. I held the hand of the youngest, and we all walked hand in hand in the direction of Chinatown. While we were walking, somehow I and the mother, started chatting. They are from France. She's of Asian descent. She works for a French company in southern France. She's a single parent and the boys are on a school break. The French father disappeared long time ago. I felt a pang of sadness. Here was a lovely family but no father. It was a casual conversation but me being very emotional I choked up a little. Finally we reached Chinatown. Before I could wish them a good day the mother invited me to join them for dinner. I was surprised. Here I was a total stranger, male in his late 30s, was being invited for a meal by these lovely family. I'm shy by nature, so I casually declined and wished them a good evening and to enjoy their dinner. She thanked me profusely, and we bid our goodbyes, and walked the opposite direction. It must have been 2 or 3 minutes of walking when I realized how foolish I was. I went back and started looking for them. Thanks God I spotted them again. They were taking photos near the Arch of Chinatown. I approached them and I said yes I would like to join them for dinner as I was also starving. She seemed pleased and happy and I started asking where they wanted to eat. After taking photos we headed for an eat-all-you-can restaurant. I was so happy the entire time. We had dinner like we were a family. I could also sense that they were happy. We chatted the entire time and she had to translate our conversation to the boys in French. Since they were fatherless, for about an hour I was like a father to the 2 boys. I accompanied the youngest back and forth in getting his food downstairs. Had to show the oldest where to find the washroom. We finished the dinner and we paid the bill. I insisted to pay mine. It was already dark when we got out of the restaurant. It was around 10 PM already. I asked them where they're headed and she said back to their hotel. Where? She said Hammersmith. Good lord. That's far from where we were. She was clearly not familiar with London and she was frantically looking on her map. London is not that safe, so I offered to accompany them to their hotel. We took the tube to Hammersmith. It took us maybe 30 minutes to get to the nearest station to their hotel. From the station we had to walk a good 10 to 15 minutes in semi-darkness back to the hotel. And finally we spotted the hotel. At that point I felt a bit sad. I enjoyed my time with them, and it's time to say our goodbyes. In front of the revolving door we thanked each other and hugged each one of them. We said our goodbyes and the boys shouted back merci monsieur. As they walked back to the building, I started walking back to the station. But before I turned the corner I looked back at them for the last time, just to be sure that they're okay. I usually don't stay till late when I'm out in London, but that night was worth it. I will never forget this day for the rest of my life. New York City bar. I was on a first date and there was an old guy at the bar. Looked like an old fisherman from a novel. And he was convinced my date and I were already married. He went on and on about it. We said we weren't married. And he told us we were meant to be together. And would be married a long time. He talked with us for a good 15 minutes about this. My date and I did get married about a year later. And have been together almost 25 years now. The day my dad died I was holding it together pretty well. Late that night I went to Target to have a moment to just zone out and buy a few groceries. As I got to the check stand with my arm full of stuff I dropped a container of sour cream and it exploded everywhere. I completely lost control of myself and started to cry. The ugly cry. I was instantly surrounded by a group of women who just took charge of the whole situation. They helped me get everything paid for, cleaned up, and one lady even got a new sour cream. No words were spoken, but their compassion and take charge attitude has stayed with me since. When I was at Disneyland a few years ago, a woman approached me out of the blue in the middle of Main Street and asked if I'd like to dance. I obliged her, and we spent the next few minutes chatting while her friends filmed us dancing. It turns out it was her birthday, and she was traversing the park on a birthday scavenger hunt, and one of the items on the list was to dance with a stranger. I wished her a happy birthday, we said our goodbyes, and went our separate ways. I never even got her name, but it still makes me smile when I think about it. I had about a 2-hour drive from Columbus to the Cleveland area. I tend to drive on the faster side, and therefore pass a lot of people. I noticed about 20 minutes into the drive that the car behind me was still the same one that got onto the highway right behind me. We ended up driving the entire 2 hours right next to each other or in front of / behind each other. We created space in lanes to help the other pass the slower cars and made sure the other wouldn't fall behind. As I was getting off the highway, he honked his horn, gave me a big smile, and waved. It has been my favorite driving experience so far. Same first name, same birthday, same interests and same work field. Saw them at a network creation event and never seen again. I'm pretty sure I told this before, but I enjoy it, so here it goes. I was playing on my Nintendo DS in the subway when I caught a random connection. I looked up to see if I could spot the other person with a DS and wound up locking eyes with this incredibly intense little boy who was seated a few benches away from me. "Do you have Pokemon?" he asked, and as it turned out, I did in fact have Pokemon. With that, our fate was sealed. There's this thing in the Pokemon games where, if you meet the gaze of another trainer on your journey, then you must battle. I had just experienced this in real life. He destroyed me. All level 100s. Felt like I was an extra in the damn anime doing battle with the protagonist. I was leaving the gym and walked down a long hallway and didn't remember having any money on me. As soon as I stepped outside, I heard a coin drop and looked down, and $2 seemed to have fallen from somewhere on me. It was strange, because I didn't have any money on me, and it would have fallen off of me inside while walking, I thought. It rolls and I pick it up. I was confused, because I don't know where the $2 came from. I look up, and there's a homeless man in a wheelchair playing harmonica who I otherwise would have passed by. I gave the $2 to him. He said thank you. I said no problem. I began to walk away, and he said good, and you? I played along and said, oh, good. Where did you learn to play harmonica? He proceeded to tell me that he used to play all sorts of instruments until he had his stroke, and showed me that one of his arms didn't work anymore. He was a nice guy, and it made my day a bit better. It was a nice and humbling moment. I was on a long late night bus ride. It was express, so it made very few stops. The bus had maybe 10 people on it in total. Halfway through the trip it made a stop at a small town station, so people could grab a snack or use a public restroom and maybe stretch their legs. I went up to the counter to buy what at that point was my dinner, even though it was after 10 PM, and when the cashier rang it up I passed a $50 bill to her, and she told me that she couldn't make change. Defeated, I went back to my seat on the bus. As everyone piled on and the bus drove away, a lovely middle-aged lady walked up from her seat near the back and politely asked if I minded if she sat with me. I told her she was more than welcome. She sits and proceeds to unpack a small lunch bag She then split the entirety of her meal with me. She said she had been waiting for the washroom to clear out and had overheard what happened. She said, "I've gone hungry in my life and it sucks. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, so you can share with me." When we were done, I jokingly asked if she could break a $50 and we had a good laugh. She stuck with me for the remainder of the trip and was a very interesting lady besides being incredibly generous. I hope she is well. I was 13 and waiting for a taxi. It was raining and I had no umbrella, so I got soaked. This guy next to me sheltered me from the rain with his umbrella. We talked while waiting for the taxi and he was so easy and fun to talk to. Note, I was a shy kid with few friends, so this was a unique event. After about 15 minutes another guy came up on his scooter. My guy told him that I was a friend of his and if he could drop me to my destination. So yeah, I just climbed on this stranger's scooter and took the lift home. Perhaps that was dumb looking back on it. Anyway, I still think of this guy and the kindness he showed me to this day, even though I don't even know his name or remember his face.